Happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining us again for another session of emotional intelligence and career transition. I am Dr. Tara, and as always, I am accompanied today by Denise Farquharson from across the pond. Welcome, Denise.
Hi there, Tara. Good to be with you again to explore more of these tips and strategies for our listeners.
Absolutely. And today's topic centers around emotional intelligence and strategies for a seamless career transition. And as I'm saying that topic, my thoughts are also spinning in my head because I know that we have covered some points of this topic, particularly about a seamless transition before. But the reality is there are just so many different strategies that you can deploy when you're in career transition. And even better, when you know that it may be the next step for you. And this kind of gives you a guide or path, some things to really think about as you embark on that career transition. So, Denise, would you like to kick us off?
Brilliant. Thank you, Tara. And the first two emotional intelligence traits that come to mind when I think about this in terms of strategies is the strategy of adaptability and the strategy of resilience. Now, in terms of adaptability, when we are at that point where a career transition needs to take place, you have really got to open yourself up to the fact that you are going to have to be adaptable to where you go, what you do, and how it's done. And there needs to be a little bit of flex. Reason being, if you stick to exactly where you are and where you're going to go needs to be exactly the same, then there's not very much growth mindset taking place there. And the comfort zone that you have created for yourself in company A, you may need to shift, adapt, flex a few things to fit into company B. Now, one of the ways of doing that is the fact that you may well have to consider that transitioning a career is a change. It's almost as I don't know, that there's some key things in life, marriage, divorce, death. There's all sorts of things that can cause quite a bit of stress, and moving careers is classed as one of them. So therefore, setting yourself up to starting to be adaptable, starting to understand where you're networking, starting to flex more with what your mentor is saying to you will really set you up to transition well. And it's helping you elevate that emotional intelligence trait as well to be able to, when you make those changes, because you've become adaptable with some self-talk, with some let me test certain avenues or areas, or let me even shadow someone for the day, for instance, all those little things that you can do to determine what next for your career, those things can be really, really beneficial. And resilience. Now, I really like this particular one because the resilience that you have in order to be facing challenges when you are in a situation of lots of movement in your mind, movement in your emotions, movement in your team, movement even possibly with your line manager. You have got to be steadfast in the decisions that you make, the strategies that you set up, the goals that you set, and be really steadfast in what are my next steps? How am I following my plan? How to adjust my plan if I need to as well, in order for you to still keep your eyes on the goal, the ultimate goal of I will transition from A to B. And this is the plan that I've set up for myself in order to do it and do it well. So those are the first two things that come to my mind around this particular subject, Tara. So back to you to explore something further.
Yeah, and those are two great points because, as I mentioned earlier, both of those were at the top of my list, and particularly resilience because I recently spoke during Black History Month for a company, and the topic was surrounding resilience. And the thing about resilience, even as I was working through that keynote speech, is that it was never a word that I would have used to describe myself. And it's not until you hear others use that word that it really for me, jarred me to really think about, where have I been resilient? And resiliency is really built through strong emotional intelligence. And you know that because you are able to bounce back after rejections, bounce back after setbacks, bounce back after so-called failures, but being able to not only bounce back, but to use those as opportunities for growth and for learning as you navigate career transition, even as you contemplate career transition, being able to do that, but to know that there will be a season uh, of of rejections or highs and lows in that process and how you manage those. But and when you think about managing those, many times we use the word stress management. And for today, I'm going to say stress resilience because being resilient in those times that you feel overwhelmed is really setting yourself up for what you're going to face going forward. And so, stress resilience, managing resilience, being able to really know how you're going to respond when you're faced with those challenges is really, really important. And I would also, when we think about adaptability, also take a step back to really think about where you are when you think about emotional intelligence, because we many times are looking to leverage EI, but what's your current state? Like, do you know if you're a person who really has a high level of EI or low? And it's not that one is better than the other because it could be that you're low in some areas and you're high in others. But I think that I would say that you really assess where you are when it comes to emotional intelligence. And it's important because you may find that you're a person who likes to remain in your comfort zone and you really don't want to step outside to build new relationships, to network, to really explore new challenges, but you know that you need to. But if you know that you're limited in how you want to do that, you are likely an individual who has low emotional intelligence when it comes to networking and exploration. A person with high emotional intelligence in that space, they initiate it. They are proactive. They are going out, making those connections. Them placing those phone calls. They are taking the time to be very intentional and how they network and how they have those conversations. And so they're on opposite ends of the spectrum. But why is it important is that you really need the time to assess where you are. And if you're low in those particular areas or in that area in particular, do the things that you need to do to transition that space, that EI space to get it to a better level. And doing it before you're actually in that career transition space is really important because that allows you to say, hey, I know that this is an area that I'm not fond of, not one that I typically initiate. What can I do so that I'm better in this space, as I know career transition or transitioning in my career is really coming soon, or that I may want to make that decision in the next 3 to 6 months. So what do I need to do as I assess where I am, my current status, high or low, and what can I do in those low areas to be better, to show up better, to approach my career transition from a better perspective. So I definitely really like that you spoke to adaptability and resilience. And as I mentioned, how you bounce back, how you show up after those setbacks is really important in how you're building your resilience. But then also taking the time to really assess your current state of emotional intelligence will really be beneficial for you, whether you're in career transition now and or if you see it, coming soon. Is really, I think that it be value added in your transition if you take the time to assess it now. Your thoughts, Denise?
Yes, oh, some great points there. And I really like that whole aspect, Tara, that you described about bouncing back, because career transitioning is an element of bouncing to a certain degree, but you've got to be able to bounce back to your plan, back to your strategy, back to the steps and the tasks that you've laid out for yourself in order to transition well. That's absolutely key. And it's definitely linked to that whole self-reliance piece, and resilience. And then also it touches on self-confidence, because your self-confidence will go high and it will go low during this
Mhm.
period of time. But more than anything, keep an eye on how competent you are for your self-confidence
Mhm.
and how assured you are for your self-confidence. So if you were able to go into a team and deliver X last year and did it well with great outcomes and results, then actually, if there's a whole new role over here that allows you to do that full time, you've expressed a level of competence already. Therefore, your self assurance will be much higher this time
Yes.
round. But then also to work on that self confidence, you need to consider your self liking. Am I good enough? Am I worthy of that new role? Am I able to move from a sector that I'm very, very used to, have a comfort zone, but now I'm going to have to step out and do something different. So the EI will go up and down for sure,
Mhm.
but keep an eye on it. And especially if you have a mentor, they will be able to help you navigate that whole journey, that whole pathway
Yes.
really effectively. So that it doesn't seem as if you're underdeveloped. No, you're just stretching in areas that need to be stretched at the times when they need to be stretched, during the journey to interview stage or post interview or assessment and or starting that
Yes.
new role. So yeah, really keen on the fact that everyone has elements of highs and lows with their emotional intelligence traits.
Mhm.
Got to keep a closer eye on them during this period of time. So Tara, can you give some information around how people can stay in contact with you during this, if they've caught some of your amazing nuggets, because you always have amazing nuggets? What is it that they can do and how can they contact you?
Yes, great. I can be reached across all social media platforms. I am Dr. Tara or drtaraspeaks.com.
Excellent. And you can speak to me, Denise, at denisesparkelson.com, where I do the emotional intelligence assessments and determine your strengths and your development areas. So I would love to hear from you. Do subscribe, follow, comment, and get in touch. And please, we do look forward to hearing from you or listening. Please do listen to any of the previous weeks that we've done as well. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions from those. And looking forward to speaking to you next week. Take care. Bye bye.